One day my girlfriend sat me down and said, I'm leaving and you're not really super supportive and I have big goals and dreams that I want to accomplish and I don't think I can accomplish them with you. So that was my rock bottom. I convinced myself that if I just went and made more money, that would solve all my problems. The next year comes and I get a promotion at my job. I'm traveling all over the place, working, making good money. And the only thing that changed was my bank account. I was still depressed. I was still anxious. I was still insecure. So I did what any young man would do. I started a podcast.
Kevin Palmieri shares his journey
from rock bottom to finding fulfillment
through podcasting and personal development.
What is your definition of success?
Probably, if I had one word, it would be fulfillment. Outside of that, it's to be the healthiest, wealthiest, most in love version of myself within alignment. So for me, I don't want more money if it's going to take me out of alignment. And I think that last part, within alignment, is very, very important because...
Welcome to It's Your Choice podcast. Today on the show, we have Kevin Palmieri. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us today.
Sally, thank you so very much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
A lot of people have heard situations where people have hit rock bottom, but you've said you found out that rock bottom had a basement. I've never heard that before. So share with us how you discovered rock bottom had a basement for you.
Yeah, so my rock bottom was I was in my mid-20s and I was somebody who I don't think anybody would have predicted was going to be any level of successful. Came from a broken home. I didn't know my dad. We didn't have any money. I didn't go to college. I worked what would be considered every quote unquote dead end job you could work in life. Somehow I managed to crawl out of that and now I'm quote unquote successful. So in my mid-20s, I had a 6-figure job. My girlfriend was a model. I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show. I had my dream car, a new apartment. So health, wealth, and love, I had them all. Except it was extremely empty. I wasn't fulfilled. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was insecure. I was self-conscious. Nobody would know it, but that's how I felt internally. One day, my girlfriend sat me down and said, I'm leaving. You're kind of a shell of the man that I met, and you're not really super supportive, and I have big goals and dreams that I want to accomplish, and I don't think I can accomplish them with you. And she said it nicely. It wasn't a bad thing. It just felt bad at the time. So that was my rock bottom. My partner leaves me. We had just got a place together. I had just done the bodybuilding show and my hormones were all over the place and I had an eating disorder. Work got slow, so I was struggling financially. All of this happens at once. I convinced myself that if I just went and made more money, that would solve all my problems. That was my conditioning, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. The next year comes and I get a promotion at my job. I'm traveling all over the place, working, making good money. And I got to the end of that year and I made the most money I'd ever made. But I remember looking at my final pay stub and expecting to feel a drastic difference. And the only thing that changed was my bank account. I was still depressed. I was still anxious. I was still insecure. So I realized for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So I did what any young man would do. I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. And that's where all this started. And I fell in love with podcasting. But as you know, in the beginning, there is not a line out the door of people saying, I love your idea, Sally. How much money do you need to do it full time? What's the number? So I had to keep going to this job that no longer served the purpose that I started it for. I worked hard to make money. I didn't love my job. I didn't enjoy what I did. I worked hard to make money. But now I want to do this podcast thing. So I feel like I'm in two different worlds. So the next year started off really crazy at work and my job required a ton of travel. And I was just homesick before I left. I was more depressed. I was more anxious. I was struggling to find a partner because I was always on the road. I was staying up for days on end and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I start calling out of work. I start leaving job sites early. I start showing up late because my mental health is just, it is just going down the toilet quickly here. And this all culminated in my rock bottom basement moment. I woke up in a hotel room. I was traveling for work that week. Alarm clock went off at 5:15 or 5:30. Normal day. I sit up, slide to the edge of the bed, lacing up my work boots as I had done 1,000 times before. And the best way to explain it, the only way I can imagine it, is there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one was on a different station.
Wow.
And one was saying, "You're stuck here forever. I know you don't like this job, but this is the best it's ever going to get. What are you're going to start over? You barely made it here. There's no way there's going to be a better path than this. If you ever did leave your job, what would your friends think? I made more money than any of my friends, so there's a lot of significance there. What's your family going to think? I was the most successful person in my family by far. What are they going to think?" And then the loudest one, and probably the most humbling one, was, "What are you going to do? You think you're going to do the podcast? Like, that's what we're going to do? We're going to leave this weird success that we created to go do the podcast full time? That's not going to work." And it was in that moment where I thought to myself, well, if I was just to take my life, I would take all my problems with me and I wouldn't have to worry about any of this. And that was my rock bottom basement. Here I am, hours away from anybody who cares about me, in a crusty hotel room, thinking that it would just be easier not to be here. Luckily, I had a really good friend who's now my business partner, and I've recorded 2,000 something episodes with. Reached out to him, expressed how I was feeling, and he gave me some perspective that day that really helped me make a different decision. I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later, and then we did do the full-time podcast thing. 2018, I left the job, and I've been a full-time podcaster since. And for the vast majority of the time, I was a very broke full-time podcaster. So I didn't leave and then get successful right away. That took longer than I had hoped, for sure.
It tends to be that, as I've heard people say, the overnight success that takes 10 years.
Yes, that is accurate.
It's many people do believe that everything happens overnight, everything happens quickly. But if you consider overnight, that takes, for some, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, then yes, that is overnight.
Well, I think it's hard because I say this all the time. This is most likely the first time that your audience has heard of me. So you didn't know me, and now you see me where I am. And if we didn't spend the time telling the story, you might assume that's just, oh, you started a podcast and you loved it so much and then it worked out. No, it doesn't work that way almost for anyone. I call it overnight awareness. Somebody is there doing their thing for 10 years. And there's people who already know of them. It's like, oh yeah, I knew that person before they were big. And then eventually it crosses a chasm and then most people know that person. But yeah, for the vast majority of the time, nobody knows who that person is.
Right. And the thing, though, that I think a lot of people can relate to, and I personally can as well, is I remember a time too that I kind of had it all. And I attended a couple seminars and stuff. And it's, once you have your house and once you have your rental property and once you have your vacation home and the new car and your job's doing well, like you've made it, you're a success, you've got it all. And I went leaving, I'm like, yeah, I have all those things, but something's still missing. Like it's not it. And it doesn't matter if I have more of those things or bigger or more expensive. Like it's just not it. And that's when I really started to discover that all of those external things that we are told that we should have or that we're supposed to have or that will make us happy really don't. I mean, they maybe bring us momentary joy and we can have that for the moment. But as we all know, that fades. Anybody who ever buys a new vehicle, and doesn't even have to be brand new, but new to me, a new car, a new TV, a new whatever, even with clothing, like great, those things bring us joy for a while. And then after it's no big deal. It's just there.
Yeah. Well, I think it makes sense logically. If we think about what didn't we have when we were young, it makes sense to say like square. Yeah. Okay. I'll get the square, put it in the square. It'll be whole again. And it makes total sense to me why I did that and why most people do. But I think what happens over time is what happened when you were younger goes from external experience to internal feelings, to identity, to traumas, to triggers, limiting beliefs, the record that you just plays in your head.
Oh, yes.
Right. And then you think, well, I can fix the problem with the same thing the problem was created with. And unfortunately, it has evolved and it is shifted and it has grown and it has spread, but it makes logical sense to me. Unfortunately, it's way deeper than that.
Right. Right. So one thing I like to ask and question people is, what is your definition of success? Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show.
Probably if I had one word, it would be fulfillment. Outside of that, it's to be the healthiest, wealthiest, most in love version of myself within alignment. And I think that last part, within alignment, is very, very important, because we've made a lot of decisions that from the outside looking in are reckless, but it's because the opposite decision was no longer aligned. So for me, I don't want more money if it's going to take me out of alignment. I want to stay in alignment and I want to be true to me and I want to be authentically me. So yeah, leveling up health, wealth, and love while maintaining as strict of alignment as possible is success for me.
And I think that is really something that people need to really kind of focus on or think about for themselves. Like, what are your core values? What is alignment for you? What is your definition of success? Because we all know, and we've all heard of stories and things of people who are super successful, famous, kind of quote, have it all, and end up committing suicide, drug overdoses, addiction to drug and alcohol, and things like that. And so when I see that, I always think, made me started to question, like, what is success? Because if that is success, these people wouldn't have these problems because they, quote, have it all, but they're not obviously happy. So happiness, fulfillment has to be part of that equation. And then we've looked at people and we hear stories of like the happy index or whatever, the happiest countries in the world and things like that. And a lot of times they aren't a lot of the most well-off countries that have the happiest people. So obviously there's a need for money. We have to buy things. We want to have food, clothing, shelter. We want to be comfortable. We want to be able to do the things we enjoy. But that's what we need even more, is to do the things that we enjoy. Some of those things have a cost to them. Some of them have very little cost. And so it is aligning with what is our own personal definition of success, and then doing the things that we need to do to fulfill that. That's always a lot easier said than done.
Like most things in life. Yeah, like most things in life. I'm really curious to know, if they change the happiness index to the fulfillment index, what would shift? I'm very curious, because I don't know. If you asked me 10 years ago if I was happy, I probably would have said yes. I probably would have said yes. Was I fulfilled? No. I was happy every time I went to the gym because I looked good. I was happy every time my partner and I went out to dinner. I was happy every time I got in my car. Every time I cashed, I was happy. I was not fulfilled, though. And what I would argue now is I am, and again, sit with me on this because I understand how it's going to come out. I'm way more fulfilled than I am happy. I have bouts of happiness, but I'm not happy all day. But when I get to the end of the day, I'm super fulfilled. But there's a lot going on, a lot of hoops, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of threading needles going on. I don't know. I think growth and contribution are required for fulfillment, and growth and contribution, growth particularly, oftentimes feels like it comes at the expense of momentary happiness and comfort, at least.
I agree. And I mean, nobody's happy all day, every day. Like, we can't be. Like, it's life. And we can go through sometimes days of being unhappy and stressful and things. But it doesn't mean, though, that we're not unhappy overall just because we're having those days. I mean, sometimes I get working on a new project or something, and it's a lot of work at the time, and I'm not like joyous doing it. But when it's done, then it's like, oh, I got it done. It's more of that fulfilling. And I think too, we have to a little bit more look at the definition of the words that we use, the definition of joy, of fulfillment, of happiness. Because I like the way that you said that, like you were feeling fulfilled, but you're not happy all the time.
Right.
And we have to be sometimes in those unhappy or at least frustrated moments when we're learning to do a task, even if it's something new, right? We like it, we're into it, we're learning it, but it still gets frustrating and we still get a little bit angry, but we're still being fulfilled because we're learning something new and we're growing.
Yeah. Fulfillment's a really strange thing, because I think oftentimes it comes after doing something you don't want to do. And I think happiness comes during doing something you do want to do. And one of those is, it's almost like, what's a good example? One of those compounds and creates an opportunity for you to have more of it in the future. I think one of those decreases, and it's kind of like a vicious cycle where if I just chase happiness today, Netflix, porn, whatever it is, whatever brings you momentary happiness, my future is suffering.
Yes.
It's suffering. But if I chase fulfillment and I grow and I contribute into something greater than myself, and I have to shift my identity to be the type of person I want to be and the level of impact I want to have, the future is bright. I'm not saying you do one or the other, but I know in the past, my balance was 80% happiness, 20% fulfillment. Now it's 80% fulfillment, 20% happiness. And here's the interesting thing. The quality of the 20% of happiness has improved drastically because my lifestyle has improved because of the fulfillment thing. And it's really strange the way it works. And it never made sense to me until I started seeing it. It's like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. If I could eat pizza every day if I want, or I could eat some healthy, nutritious food that's going to fill me up, is within my fitness goals. And you know what? Maybe once every other weekend I have pizza. And I'm getting stronger and I'm looking better and I get pizza. And there's something to that. There's something to that for sure.
Absolutely. And I agree because and if we're just chasing happiness, then I think then when we hit a struggle, then it's even worse because we all go through rough times, whether it is the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a loved one, family member, then those really hit hard. But when we've learned to go through struggles of even just learning something new and getting frustrated with it and just having that feeling, because I think we always need to have all emotions and feelings. I just don't want to stay in those negative ones for too long. And like, I know I'm going to get mad. I can't say I never get mad, but I don't get nearly as mad as I used to about things, or some things that I would get mad about now. Whatever. I don't even care now. And so that has changed, but I don't want to say I never want to be angry again, because we can't really enjoy the happiness, the laughter, those types of things if we don't feel those other kind of negative emotions. But I don't want to be in them for very long.
Yeah. I think anything absolute is dangerous.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything absolute. I mean, death and taxes, pretty much. I mean, those are kind of, we're locked into
taxes. We can work on that a little bit. I have my other podcast called Global Citizen Life, and we work on reducing those taxes and international living. But yes, for the most part, I mean, there's strategic ways, but that's unavoidable.
Right, unavoidable. For now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. There's some weird stuff happening.
There is some very interesting things going on. I used to say, even when I was a teenager, teenager to early 20s, I would say to people, I'm going to live till I'm 120. And people would say to me, you're so stupid. Like, nobody lives past 80 or, whatever age kind of, but it was life expectancy was 80-ish. And now that was more than 20 years ago. And now when I say it to people are like, really? You'd want to live that long? And they're like, well, it's possible. But it was just because I knew back then. I was an emergency medical technician, so did a bit of a medical background. And I kind of saw how things were progressing. And in my head, like I said, if I was around 20, I thought, well, if I'm 20 now, by the time I'm 80, that's still 60 years, like 60 years of medical advancement. Can, like, who knows where we'll be? And so even now, I mean, there's still decades of medical advancement until I'm 80. And then again, who knows? Pardon the interruption. If you're enjoying this episode and you're someone who values performance, clarity, and personal growth, then you're going to love my Mind Matters weekly newsletter. Every week, I send out a quick, powerful piece designed to help high achievers like you master your mindset, upgrade your habits, and lead with more clarity and fulfillment. It's not fluff, it's science-backed, actionable, and easy to digest. Think of it as your weekly reset button to realign with the leader you're becoming. So if you want to go deeper than what we've covered here on the show, then head over to www.sallypederson.com, that's me, and subscribe. Your next breakthrough just might be one email away. Now back to the show.
I read a book, I think it's called The Future is Faster Than You Think, I believe. And there was a line in there where he said, I just am trying to live long enough to live forever, essentially. And it was like,
right.
Interesting. Or you got to live long enough so you can live to 140 or 120, whatever it is. Because to your point, things are changing quickly, for sure.
Right. And then the question usually becomes after that is, well, how do you want to live? I mean, I don't want to be in an care facility. Like, I still want to be out and moving around and, taking care of myself and all of those types of things. And so it's a number of things now. It's, okay, well, financially, what do I need to live that long? But how long am I going to be working? Right? If I'm loving doing what I do, I could be doing it. Maybe I'll be podcasting at 120 and who knows? Maybe podcasting won't even be a thing anymore. It'll be something different. But, and then the health wise is very important. And so I think through the time too is to look forward to living that long and enjoying life. We have to find what fulfills us. Some people like to use that word purpose. Like, what is your purpose? You could use that. What fulfills you, I think, might be better, because people are like, I'm supposed to do one thing. What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? And we get a little bit hooked up on it. And I know I have. I've sat there going, what am I supposed to do? What is my purpose? But I do like to look a little bit more as what would be my fulfillment? What fulfills me? And then leaning towards doing those things that I enjoy, fulfill me, that also help others, because that's contribution. And I love helping other people. And that might be a little bit of a different way to word it for people if they're struggling with figuring out what is my purpose.
I think it is far harder to say, what do I see myself being versus what do I see myself doing? I think for a lot of us, that's a question and a topic that gets brought up a lot, especially when we have deep conversations on podcasts. Like, I talk about purpose all the time. And what I often say is, I think most people need to find their vehicle. We know kind of what we're meant to do, I think, to a degree. Most of us want to help a certain type of person overcome a certain type of problem in a certain type of way based on a certain unique experience. For the most part, not everybody.
Right.
Or you had a certain experience. A good example of this is somebody goes to swim at the Great Barrier Reefs. They realize the Great Barrier Reefs are kind of a cemetery. Part of their purpose now becomes, I want to make the environment a better place. Cool. Love that. But I think a lot of people, I would love to do that, but I could never make money. I could never do that full time. I don't know how to do that. I think that's the vehicle. My purpose is not to be a podcaster. That's the vehicle. The vehicle is podcasting, speaking my voice. My purpose is to be the type of person that I needed when I was riding the struggle bus hard. I didn't know that until after the vehicle of podcasting. So to your point, you can find the vehicle. And then if you fall in love with the vehicle, I think the purpose ends up being the fuel. So I don't feel like you have to know exactly who you're supposed to be. I think it could start with, I feel like I'm supposed to do this thing. And then there's a bunch of questions under that. Okay, how do you feel like you're going to do that thing maybe differently than somebody else would expect? Well, I'm going to do it with purpose and heart and vulnerability. Cool. Where does that come from? Well, that's, and boom, now you're down the rabbit hole.
Right. Right. And two, that always evolves, right? Like nobody, we have a goal or a plan, or a guide. I like the word guide a little bit more than plan, because whenever I make a plan, things kind of get thrown at me or something happens. I'm like, didn't see that one coming. And so the guide, I find it just helps us be a little bit more flexible, knowing that, well, one, we don't know what we don't know. And so no matter what we do, even if it is being a podcaster or being on podcasts, things will change. Curveballs will come. And my experience isn't the same as your experience. Right. And you do things differently than I do. And so we have to be aware that even if we follow the path of someone else, it's not going to be the exact same. Like if they were successful at 100 episodes and started making lots of money at that point, just because you do the same thing doesn't mean it's going to be the same. Like everybody's path is a little bit different, and it's going to change along the way as we learn things, we do things, and we have to have that flexibility and not be too rigid with, this is what I want, this is the way it needs to happen, and this is the way it's going to work, because life will throw us curveballs if we're too rigid with that.
Yeah, I would say the vast majority of the things I do on a daily basis, I did not expect to do. So most of this is just a byproduct of continuing to go and then getting more awareness and saying, I'd like to try that and then see what happens. And a lot of the stuff, we were joking. I've said this on a podcast episode recently. Probably, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, I thought I was going to be a peak performance coach for high level athletes. Okay. That's what I wanted to do. It's like, that would be the best. I coach podcasters and I coach business owners and I coach speakers. Yes, a lot of it is mindset. A lot of it is. And many of these people are high level peak performers, but they're not athletes like I thought they were going to be. And I'm not in gyms with people like I thought I was going to be. There are crumbs from the original cookie. There's a lot of crumbs. And I think that's part of evolution. I wouldn't like doing what I thought I would like doing 6 years ago, because I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago. So yeah, we have to give room for expansion, and don't be afraid to be a hypocrite in your own life. It's okay. Things change. You can only set goals based on what your awareness of your desires currently, and your desires are going to change. The world is going to change. You couldn't be a professional gamer 30 years ago. It didn't work that way. Now, right.
Exactly. And just as you said, like things change, we change. And I, a while ago, was considering having a podcast called Conscious Contradictions, because I contradict myself so often, or so many ways. I would think like, oh, I like ABC, but in certain situations, then I don't really like it, or then I don't think it's right, or, just different things. And I know that I've even thought myself, like I have contradicting viewpoints and thoughts and everything, and not even stuff that is just basically has changed from, 5 years ago to now, or 10 years ago to now. There's still now that I can have conversations and I kind of contradict myself, because sometimes it'll come down to specifics within a situation.
Well, that's humility, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
I think humility is saying, look, this is how I see it today, but I might learn something tomorrow that might affect what I say today. I used to think that everybody should have massive, massive, massive world shifting goals. And I think that was dumb. I think it was misinformed. I think it was ignorant. I think it was arrogant. I think people should have the goals that serve them. That is something that I just couldn't fathom in the very beginning of this personal development journey. I thought, well, my goals are making all this growth for me, and it's awesome. That's not right for everybody. And as somebody who has spent thousands of hours on a microphone in front of a lot of people, a lot of what I used to say no longer applies. And I think We just have to be okay with that first before anybody else is. I mean, I think it's arrogant to think you're always going to know exactly where you stand on everything.
No, there's just no way. I mean,
Right.
because as you said, like information changes. And now I think it's even a little bit harder is because there's so much information out there and how much of it is accurate, is truthful. And I don't even want to use the word really with accurate or truthful, because with all the travel and things that I've done, I've come to believe and come to actually know that my thoughts and beliefs, they are not right. They are not wrong. They are only mine because of what I've been taught, what I've been told, what I've seen, and what I've experienced. And so if I was taken as a 2-year-old and moved to another country halfway around the world with a different family, my thoughts and my beliefs would be completely different because what I was taught, what I was told, what I experienced, and what I see is different. So therefore, my thoughts and beliefs, they aren't right. They aren't wrong. They're just mine.
Mm.
And that's for everybody. Right. And so I wish, and hopefully with this podcast and all the other wonderful podcasts out there, that people kind of start to realize and open up a little bit more that really no one's right, no one's wrong. It's just based on our personal experiences and knowledge from the path that we've walked to where we stand today. And that will change as we continue our path, wherever it goes for the following days, months, decades, whatever it may be.
120 years for the following 120 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm sure my opinion's going to change quite a bit in that time.
I'm sure it is. I think as long as we're looking for explanations, we're looking, this is not my quote. Somebody else had it. It's a really good perspective. I'm looking for an explanation, not an excuse. An explanation is not an excuse necessarily. And I'm always trying to ride the line of that. Like, okay, this person has this belief and it makes me feel a certain way. What is the explanation for why they think something so differently than I do? And why do I think what I think? And I just feel like even that little perspective helps us a little bit more with empathy. I
think that's huge.
Right?
I really think it's huge. If we sit down and ask ourselves, why do I think this? Why do I believe this? And sometimes we're not going to know, but even if it's something as simple as, well, because that's what my parents always said. Okay, you know what? That's at least step one. So now so do I believe that or think that, or my school taught me this, or my church did, like whatever it may be. That step one is, why do I believe it? And then it is it true for me? Am I still sticking with that truth? Is it true for me? Or do I want to do a little research and do a little digging and see kind of what other things are out there to make me decide if I want to keep this as true for me, but also be aware, though, that it's not true for others and others have their truth and it is true for them, even though it may not be what's true for me.
Then when it gets really foggy is where somebody else takes what they know is the desired truth, then sells the truth as the law. And then that's where things,
right.
That's why I'm convinced one of the superpowers that we have and that we can practice and we can work on and we can lean into and evolve into is self-awareness and awareness in general.
Mm-hmm.
The more aware you are on something, the less likely you are to be taken advantage of in that capacity. And I think that's why people say knowledge is power. I think knowledge is potential. I think awareness is really close to power, though, because it's a filter. If somebody reached out to me one time, somebody in our community, and they sent me this ad, and it was something along the lines of, "We'll help you launch a top 100 podcast," or whatever it was, and it said, "This is our client, whatever. They're a top podcast in 285 countries." And he said, "Do you think this is BS?" And I said, "Well, there's not 285 countries, so yeah, I'm gonna say it probably is BS, but I've been doing this for 8 years. I've been doing this for a long time and I've worked with hundreds of people. If you asked me about an ad about a candle, I'd be like, I have no idea. Maybe not.
You don't know the difference between a soy wax and a
There you
wax
go.
or a
No.
whatever. See, even I don't even know if that's accurate.
Right? I could be swimming in it right now and I would have no idea. But that's why I think self-awareness is such an important component to everything, because at the end of the day, you got one shot at this weird thing, and you are the vessel with which you are going to go through this entire existence. And if you know your cell phone, or you know what's happening on your favorite sitcom or your favorite sports team better than you know yourself, that is a potential for a rocky future. I'm not guaranteeing it. That would be ignorant of me to say that. It is a potential, though. Self-awareness, when your car breaks down, you bring it to the mechanic.
Right.
Unless you have higher awareness of how to fix it. Well, I think the self is the same thing.
Right. And we spend the most time with the self.
Yes.
And it is really important that we know it and we question it. And also we know that it changes, whether we're talking about our experiences, which changes our opinion, our health, for us to know our own bodies. And I think that is super important too. I know people are like, oh, well, I go to the doctor. If it's like, yeah, but you still need to know yourself. Like, what is normal for you? What's not normal for you? And how does that work? And that's with everything, not even just our physical body, but even our thoughts, and how we've all experienced, we're having a great day and all of a sudden these, I don't know, weird, crazy, negative thought of something pops in our head out of nowhere. And then just them saying, okay, brain, thank you for sharing. I'm not participating in that type of conversation or thought right now, and to let it go. But that is then having the awareness to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's unbelievably important. And I don't know if it's a game of reflection. You do something, you get a result, you get a feeling, you get an emotion, you get an output, and then you reflect and say, okay, what was that about? We had an event, we hosted an event last weekend, and it was on Saturday. And Sunday, I just felt bad. I don't know. That's the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my wife and she's like, how do you feel? And I was like, I'm just, nah. And she's like, it always happens the day after an event. It's like, yeah, it does. Always. It always happens. Why? Because you go from a perceived mountaintop that isn't real. It's just another day. It's no different, to what then seems like going back to normal life, which is exactly the same as it was before. It's no different. It's all perception. But now I know that. So that self-awareness can then turn into relationship awareness. And I can say, babe, just FYI, feeling it a little bit today. You know how it is the day after the event. If I'm short with you at all, or if my state seems off, it's not you. I might seek a little bit of solitude today. I love you. I appreciate all the support. I just need to be alone. Versus, you just had a great event. Why are you not happy? Whatever, right? So it's really hard to share something with somebody else to ease a situation if you don't understand it about yourself.
Well, right. Yeah, because we need to understand it, or at least be open to the conversation, where, if it's somebody that knows us well and is around us enough, like as your wife said, well, it does kind of usually happen after events. So she notices it, because sometimes it is easier for some people to notice certain patterns within us that we may not realize. So having those conversations as well makes us self-aware. So it isn't always just, it is good to sit by ourselves and think about why do we think things and stuff like that. But again, to be open to those closest to us, that when these things come up or conversations, that they know us very well too. And sometimes people can see things in us or about us that we don't recognize or see for ourselves, because sometimes we have our own blinders on.
We do. That's why there's side mirrors and rear view mirrors, right? We're looking forward. There's gotta be ways for us to look in other directions. And to your point, oftentimes that's the people around you. Everybody talks in the personal development space about the people around you and the importance of them. And the list is very, 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 very long why the people around you matter, but that's for sure one of them, because they recognize it, they communicate it, right? That's a very, very big thing, but they got to recognize it. And that takes emotional intelligence, and it takes a lot of things.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, before we wrap up here a bit, tell people about your podcast because you have a fantastic podcast as well. And you mentioned you had an event last week. So if you have any other upcoming events or kind of what's going on, let us know where people can find you and find your podcast.
I appreciate that very much. It is called Next Level University, and we talk all about personal development through the lens of life, love, health, and wealth. That's why that's my definition of success. We're trying to help other people that also have that as their definition of success. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. We do an episode every day. So you will either get sick of us or fall deeply in love with us. Hopefully it's the second one. And what is up and coming? We have a program for podcasters that is group coaching. So it's 12 calls, and the first 4 calls are focused on level up yourself. So self-improvement, personal development, mindset, belief, all that. The second 4 sessions of the 12 are level up your podcast. So all the logistics and tips and tricks we have about podcasting. And then the final 4 sessions are business. So essentially it's a podcast accelerator where you come in and by the end you have an idea of how to monetize and turn your podcast into a business. That's starting April 15th. I don't know when this episode's going out, but it's starting April.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that we have links to your podcast in there and to the event. And if this is after whatever other, we'll be in touch for other upcoming events to put in there so people can find you and reach out. But definitely check out the podcast. And I just want to say thank you very much for your time today, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, it was a pleasure. Any chance to go deep in conversation is a chance I want to take. So I appreciate you very much.